So, if we're recording, hello everyone who's viewing this video online. This is the co-hosted Society for Cognitive Studies of the Moving Image screening, facilitated here in wonderful Edmonton at the Metro. We've just watched, in my, humble opinion, one of the best films made in this place that some people call Canada in long memory. I'm so delighted that we have one of our filmmakers of the film, Kathleen Hepburn, enjoyed also by our lead performer, Violet Nelson. I'm so excited to have them here. I'm so excited to have a large international audience here with us from various parts from around the world, some of whom are visiting this place for the very first time, and no better film to show our international audience than I think this one. So, without further ado, please officially welcome our guests, and we'll kick things off. Because I'm also a co-organizer of the conference and very busy, I didn't really prepare questions, full confession. But I also roll that way when I do these kinds of events, because I'm usually more interested in hearing and having our audience ask questions. I usually have something in mind to prepare things. But before I hand the mic over to the audience, and I think maybe there's one, is that the mic there? Derek in front, I can't, maybe we'll have a runner. I'll pass the mic around when we have questions, and you guys each have one, that's great. Could I maybe begin just like with a kind of funsy question? Do you each want to share, I suppose, a moment in the production of this film that you really enjoyed? Do you want to take a second to think about what that may, like I want to hear from a creator's standpoint. What was something that you really loved while you were making this film, which is a very heavy, obviously, film, but for me watching it, really such joy and care in the film. So despite really the intense subject matter, I want to start from a place of happiness where you're making the film. Can we start that way? Yeah.
Sure.
That's
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good place to start. There was so much about this film that was joyous, despite how heavy the subject matter was, and a big part of that was Violet and her presence sort of on set and in the room, and the way that she just sort of brightened up any space that she came into, and she's quite the prankster. I'm going to tell this story, so you have to think of another one. And there's a scene in the film, which you remember probably, where Ella Maya's character, Isla, is in the washroom and she's changing a menstrual pad. And the poor set decorators had to, create this menstrual pad of blood. And so they were testing out different types of coloring to get they wanted it to look very authentic. And Violet got her hands on some of these test pads. What?
Tell it true.
You tell it.
You're the one that told me to do it.
I don't remember that part. And she managed to get one of these pads stuck on our producer's back as he was sort of going about his day. So just things like that. Like she brought a brightness to the room and to the world we were in, and it was a very sort of family-like environment.
I like that. Violet, do you have something that really sticks in your memory about being on this production? Which is it was your first production, yeah? And so you've maybe done a little bit of camera work before, but this is the first kind of feature film that you were in, right? But
First, any kind of acting. And Kathleen's the one that told me to do it. And she's like, you gotta figure out how to get this pad on his back. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna pretend that I'm sad. And then I'm gonna ask him for a hug. And then I did, and I put it on his back. And one of the mentees, Jacoby, was like, oh, Tyler, you have, and I was like, no. And he's like, oh, she did something to me, and he found out within like 5 minutes. But I think something that was really cool to me was when they were figuring out what Rosie should be wearing, the costume designer didn't meet with me at all, and she somehow figured out my own style for Rosie. And I walked in and she's like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Okay, you have to come look at what I have designed for Rosie." And I was in there with like the tie-dye sweater, leggings, and Converse. And she literally had on her like computer was like a tie-dye sweater, leggings, and Converse. And she's like, "We haven't even met and they haven't showed me anything about you. And I somehow figured out how to design Rosie based off of what you wear." And I thought that was kind of freaky. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
That is freaky, and it's a great choice because I mean, it pops so much. And I like my first exposure to the film was seeing this poster and seeing that you in this tie-dye sweater. I'm like, I don't care. I'm watching this film. I don't know anything about it, but just like that, the strikingness of that image alone. So like, kudos to the costume designer for making one want to watch a film just based on the clothing on the poster alone. So yeah, how fortuitous, right? Okay, well, I mean, I've got another question in mind, and I don't want to hog the mic too much, but because we're dealing with a lot of audience that's never been necessarily to the place that some people call Canada before, and the film is such a big part of the film is its location, yeah. Set in this particular area of Vancouver, mostly in East Hastings kind of area. Do you guys want to tell the audience a little bit about your experience in that area, what you want to say about that particular park? It's a very interesting part of Vancouver for those who maybe don't know about it or haven't. How many people have visited Vancouver before or been there before? Okay, so a few, right? Yeah. Is that an okay question to go?
Yeah, no, yeah, so landscape was obviously a character in this film to us anyway in making it, and East Hastings is where we both live, both Maya and I lived near there, and so had spent a lot of time there, but it's also a very complex part of our city. There's a lot of trauma there, there's a lot of homelessness, a lot of drug use. It's a very complicated place, and I think to us it was important to show the multi-layers of this place. So there's a shot of the film which is accidental in a way, but I feel like it really speaks to what we were trying to say with this idea of place and the history and the generations when it sort of, we drive down Hastings and you see, the gentrification, and then you see the sort of buildings that are being gentrified, so they're kind of boarded up, and then you see the industrial parts, and then you see, suddenly it opens up and you see the mountains. And to me, that sort of speaks to like the history of what this land was and whose it was, and who, who were the stewards of this land. And then, yeah, so just like this place is complicated, I guess, is what we wanted to sort of express. And this is our home and this is our community, and there's a lot of richness to it.
Hey, Violet, how about you? Are you from around Vancouver, or is that like what's your connection to being there? Was it?
Well, I actually grew up in East Van from since I was a baby until like I was 9 years old, and then we moved to Surrey. So I still feel connected to East Van because I have a lot of family out there, especially downtown as well. And like, I don't know, that's still my community. So I was kind of glad that we were filming in an area that I already knew about, like I knew of and felt comfortable in.
Yeah, it really shows there. And I've got a sister-in-law who lives in Vancouver, and my friend Cecily Strong does a lot of work in Hastings. And so when I was seeing the film, anybody who's spent any time in Vancouver is obviously a very gray city a lot of the times, and I love the choice to, I don't know if that factored in the choice to shoot on 16 in particular, but it really, this is the first film I've seen in Vancouver, like, wow, this really, like, in your body feels like Vancouver, what it's like to be in that space with that light, and with the sense of humidity and the water. So that was beautifully captured in ways that I hadn't seen other films, about and set in Vancouver before. So like that really hit me watching that film as well too.
I'll just say there aren't a lot of films set in Vancouver to begin with, so.
Yeah, for sure. I would rather start taking questions. You guys have anything else you want to tell the audience before we cede control to our viewers? No? Questions are ready to go? Yeah, please. We've got a microphone, and so if you don't mind speaking into the mic so that, again, we can hear you, the whole audience can hear you, and then it's good for the sound later on. Thank you, Derek.
Hi, thank you so much for your really interesting and inspiring movie. So I have a couple of questions. The first one is that wasn't a moment that the first leading role, she was touching a book. The name of that book was The Last Standing Woman. I was wondering why you selected that book. Second question is why blue and pink? Do you it's related to the the gender of the baby, and why all of her nail was blue and just one of them was pink? And also another question is how.
Sorry, if we can let's start with two, so we have a chance to answer one at a time. And if you've got a third question, then we'll come back to you in fairness to the rest of the audience. But let's begin with two so we don't lose track of them. Thank you.
Sure, thank you for those questions. The book, I wouldn't say we selected that book in particular. We were working with production designers who were trying to sort of create a space for you're speaking in Isla's apartment? With a space that represented who she was, which is, someone who's quite educated, knows a lot about her culture, about her history, and she sort of surrounds herself with these, with all of these different elements of her life. So I would say it's the choice of that particular book was not intentional, but that was the general vibe for her, building her space and building that. And that apartment was built up from the bottom up. So it was very intentional. And the colors were inspired by Violet, her tie-dye sweater, I'd say, which she wore a lot in real life. Mismatched nails. Yeah, we really just wanted to draw from who she was, and that kind of, I think all of those little elements just sort of reminded you that this is a person with a life and with a richness to her and who she is and an identity, and makes choices for herself that make her happy. So little things like painting her nails and the color. I wouldn't say it has anything to do with the gender of the baby. It's just the colors that sort of existed in her world. Yeah. And to your point just about Vancouver, what was really surprising in filming this was how colorful it was. It was gray, obviously, but we started to see the city in a way that sort of brought out all these colors, which was a cool experience.
How come just the one?
I think she ran out of nail polish. She kind of
As you
flirted,
do.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she ran out.
And my daughter's like that all the time. She's like, damn it.
But she was also, it's just from a story perspective, interrupted. She was painting her nails in that. Weren't you painting your nails with the? Okay, never mind.
Awesome. Let's keep it going, please.
I remember one of the opening credits was about funding from a SAMI fund. Was there funding from Canada as well, or what was because I was watching this and that was the first thing that I saw, and I was like, well, that's peculiar that you would get funding from there. But how did you fund the picture? I'm always interested in that.
Yeah, so I'll just say Elamaya is Sami, and she's also Blackfoot, so we were able to access some funding. They have a small but strong Indigenous film community there that she's a big part of. But yes, we got Canadian federal funding through Telefilm. and various other bodies, Creative BC, I think the Indigenous Screen Office, I think that was their first year of financing. I think we got some from them, and tax credits. Yeah.
The film's officially a co-production, yeah, when it's listed as.
Yeah, it's a co-production with Norway. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys. I really found your film super impactful. Really, thank you for sharing this with us. I'm curious, as someone with a film production background, to hear more about like the actual the actual filming of this, because at least to me, and maybe you like hid some cuts super well, but like for me, like this felt like, you know, one long unbroken take. And it was like, I think, because this film came out in 2019, right? And so, I mean, you had other films that were doing this, and it felt like a gimmick. But here, it really, I felt like it really aided the story super well and kept it so immediate and just gripping. And so, I'm definitely curious to hear about what the process of taking this approach was when shooting on actual film and not having like a super big budget. Like I mean that whole, even the whole idea of making this is just fascinating to me.
Yeah. So so there's 13 cuts in the film, but they were only there because we were shooting on film. So we only had 11 minutes per roll. And our cinematographer, you know, when we first told him we wanted to do this in one shot, and he was like, well, how are we going to do this on film? And we were like, Norm, we can't shoot it on film. We're going to do it in one shot. And he was like, no, we're going to figure this out. So what we did was we had 2 cameras, and the cameras were preloaded, ready to go, all set up. And the camera assistant would sort of leapfrog ahead with the next camera. So Norm would, shoot the full roll, and then we'd have a transition point where he would, pan across, or a character would walk across, and then he would just drop that camera, pick up the next one already rolling, and carry on. So the actors were able to kind of continue on without stopping, but we were still able to use film. So it was quite an adventure.
Can I say, how was that for you, Violet, as a performer, right? Like, one of the things that's most like powerful and extraordinary about this movie that you don't see a lot of, like, it's a movie about people like feeling each other out through like these long expanses of silence and just like looking at each other, like, are you going to talk? Are you going to like? And you're just sort of like almost like a game of chicken a lot of the time. So. Knowing that at any moment, right, if people forget where they are, where they have to be, it's like, oh my God, we can't, like, that's the shoot for today, because you can't turn the car back around. So like, that's so much pressure on you. Like, how did you, but you like, you're so in it and there, like how did that not fry your nerves completely? Or maybe it did, and I don't know. Do you want to talk about that at all? Like, just, yeah, that pressure, man.
Well, like, I think we did rehearsals for like a month of just like, cause like I didn't have any experience with any acting. Like honestly, in high school, you know, like they make you do drama class. I got out of that somehow. Like I was like, no, I don't want to do it. But like I ended up in it for like the film, and so we did like rehearsals. I think for like a month of just Kathleen, Maya, and myself. And then like halfway through, like the director mentee, Jade, was also part of it as well. And they like helped me break down each scene, each side, so that I can have like an idea of like what Rosie's thinking, what Rosie might do next, and to basically just stay in that zone. And then also before we started like the one take, they had me go into like a dark room, put some headphones on, and get into this space that I needed to be in for that start of the one take. Actually, the first day that we did it, my mom was on set. Oh, and she seen me in the vehicle, and she seen my tears, and she like literally started storming over, and Kathleen was like, no, she's okay. And my mom was like, oh, she better be okay. And so she realized after that, like, that's how it's supposed to be. And they kind of they gave me like little, I guess, pep talks before we started shooting. They let me know, like, it's okay if like you make a mistake, like we'll just go back to the place that we panned from.
Yeah, which we only did we had one day where we didn't finish. There was one of the crew members' hand got in the frame and we had to stop, and we never finished that day. But Violet has an incredible memory, and so she was able, I mean, she hit every mark. I don't think we never stopped because of the performers. That was never, and I think having Maya there to kind of set the pace and set the tone and try and shift things when they needed to go faster or slower or, yeah.
Hello, this is directed to Violet. I'm so proud of you, young lady. I am so proud of you. I think it's important that I acknowledge that, because being an elder of the community, I know the horror shows that many have witnessed throughout the years. And for you to act in this film as the abused woman, had I seen that film when I was a young woman, it might have saved me an awful lot of suffering in my lifetime. It might have saved an awful lot of lives. And the ending was very impactful for me, because it leaves one in a place to wonder what happened. You know, I became a social worker because of that type of violence. And I helped a lot of people, not just females, but males, two-spirited, many people leave in those type of situations. And I know it would take a lot of courage for an Indigenous person to do it. And I'm just wondering, how did you handle that?
I want to say, like, Kayla Kasla for saying those kind words. I appreciate that. To be able to handle that, like Kathleen and Maya told me, like, one of the like big reasons why they went with me was because I had experience with what Rosie had gone through. Because my mom was in an abusive relationship and I was in foster care for a portion of my childhood. I think because I knew how to mentally take all that in, and with their help with like getting counseling, I think it was like every week I had to go to counseling, and they gave me some tools while we were in rehearsals. Like, it wasn't just like, let's get into it. They actually they did like meditations, they did like yoga with me to like ground me more, because I did kind of lose it in a rehearsal where like I just broke down, and like we called it a day because I was like a mess. And they also had an elder on set when we were filming as well, and it was really cool because that elder, turns out that she's somehow my family member. She's from the same community as my mom and I. And so like we really connected while we were on set. And she was there for all of the cast and crew as well, because it was really heavy for like a lot of people. Yeah.
That's why I have to commend you, because I know the struggle. I know how difficult. And don't you think she deserves an extra round of applause? Thank you for doing that, Violet. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Kanaskumte.
Thank you for that question.
Hi, thanks for sharing this film and for talking with us today. I had a question about, Nick kind of touched on this before, but if you could speak more to the decision to shoot this film in a long take style. Like, when did that come into when you were conceiving of the film, when did you decide that that was going to be what you wanted to do, and why you decided to make that choice, and what you think it added to the film, and if you could just talk a little bit more about that decision, I'd be curious to know. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so I should say the film was inspired by something that had occurred in Ella Maya's own life. She'd met a woman on a street very near to where we filmed, and sort of had this very temporary experience and relationship with this person, and never saw them again after. But it was obviously very impactful for her and her life, and so we wanted to honor the sort of temporality of that, and allow the audience to sort of be in the room with these characters, and not really know when it was going to end, when you were going to get a release. So it happened very early on in the script stage. We decided that was how, because we had to, because when you're writing a one-take movie, you can't just take a script that's not written for a one-take and shoot it that way. It's just not going to work. So we had to incorporate all these choices into the way we were writing, and when scenes end, when they move locations, all of this stuff had to be very choreographed out. And I think the effect is that you're kind of holding your breath through the film, because you don't have that as soon as there's a cut in a film, you get like release pressure. So to not have that allows you to kind of really be with these characters and hold that tension of that experience.
Hi, the film is so striking to me in how the style of dialogue contrasts with like typical film dialogue, and I was wondering if you could say more about the development of the script. Like, was any of it based on actual transcripts or interviews with people, or was any of it ad-libbed, or was any of it developed in the rehearsal process, or did you write the entire thing before beginning rehearsals?
It was very written. It was, again, based on a real experience, so a lot of the situational stuff was drawn from just real life. The dialogue was all fictional. We fictionalized the characters to try and separate from this real person that she'd met. It had to be very scripted, but at the same time, we did, once we had Violet cast, because she was actually quite different from the way if you read the character on the page, you'd probably picture a different person. But when we met Violet, she had this kind of magical sort of essence to her, and she was such an empathetic person, and she sort of was a more surprising person to watch in this character. So we did end up rewriting with Violet on there was the one monologue in the taxi, which we rewrote a few times to kind of make it feel more natural for her. And then there was a few smaller lines throughout that we kind of adjusted to fit better. Yeah.
Well, while we're passing the mic, can you talk about the casting process? Like, how did you get involved, and what was that like? As we're just waiting for our next question, can you just elaborate on that? How you hooked up with the crew and production?
Yeah, we were actually talking about this with my friend Risha, because she was asking, and I was like, I don't want to answer. But like, the way I found out about the film was that I was in a music video with Kini. It's this organization that goes to different Indigenous communities and works with the youth to create a song that is meaningful for that community, so that they can have like a voice that they can speak out to people outside of their community. So I got to do that in a Surrey school district, and after that I met someone from CBC Radio. Her name is Chantel, and she knew Maya, and Maya and Kathleen, they like posted out like an open casting call. So Chantel was like, hey, you know a lot of the Indigenous people in your community, can you let them know about it? And I was like, actually, I'm going to like a conference for Indigenous youth. I'll let the other kids there know. And then I told my mom about it. And my mom was like, oh, so aren't you gonna like do it? And I was like, no. And then she's like, why not? And I was like, well, acting's not my thing. And I was like, I've never done it before. And she's like, well, how do you know that's not your thing? Like, you've never tried it, so how do you know? You're never gonna know unless you try. And then I was like, oh, dang, you're kind of right. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I was like, but what if I get like a no? Or like what happens? And she's like, it's either a yes or a no. If it's a yes, that's cool. If it's a no, it just wasn't meant to be in that moment. So then when I went to like the first audition, it was at my old elementary school, Britannia. And it's in Vancouver, and so like I remember they asked me to like improv something to do with like the abusive partner, and so I took something from my mom's own experience. I don't think I ever told you about that part. I took something from my mom's own experience of like how someone's telling you like you shouldn't be with that person, but you're like, I really love this person and they love me, and they're like, that's not love. But in the person's point of view, that's all they've ever known was this abusive person. So it's like not so easy to say like, okay, I'm gonna leave you. It's like super hard. Like as a 9-year-old, when I told my mom like, you have to leave your partner, it took her like 3 years, I think, to actually leave him. Because it's not that easy as saying like, I don't want you around me anymore because you're hurting me. Like she actually believed that he loved her because he would harm her and then he would gift her with a lot of things. And that's what she thought love was. And so I used that in like the, what was it called again?
Yeah, we did like a hot seat exercise, I think.
Yeah. And then it just kept going on and on. I think there was like five callbacks, man.
Yeah, we put
us
you through. But we knew right from that first audition, we were just trying to convince everybody.
I think there's a question there from Ari. Oh, yeah, great.
Thank you for such a wonderful film. Thank you for sharing your story. My question has to do with, I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about the revision process, since it's such a continuous film. I'm just curious what it's like to, what has changed between the first draft when you had the idea and the draft before, adjusting for other production concerns. What were some of the directions you were trying, or things that did not make it to the final story? And yeah, just like, what was the kind of creative direction that you found throughout the process?
So the writing process, it happened very quickly. We didn't have a lot of time, and we managed to get funding like a lot faster than is normal. But we did have a few drafts. So I would say like the script actually sort of, it was one thing and then we kind of veered it this way. We were worried that it was going to be boring, that people weren't going to engage enough for it to have momentum. So we tried a few different things that kind of were like, oh, this is going to make it more exciting, or like this is going to be more dramatic. But then at the end of the day, we realized that we were just kind of trying to lean on these crutches of plot and drama to create kind of a false tension when the real tension was just this, letting the story be what it was, which is like just a very simple character-driven drama. So I would say that was the route. It kind of went like we were here and then we were like this and then we came back to what the original was. So it didn't change a whole lot from the first draft. Dialogue changed, but structurally it was the same.
Okay, so we're past the mic. I'll fill the space of time. You want to say a couple of things about the music in the film, which is just so amazing. Like, I don't know, was there a shout out to Fort McLeod's National Treasure, Joni Mitchell, as that particular choice? Or you would say a couple of things maybe about the songs and the film, which is just, that's what like broke me watching this movie, just, yeah.
Yeah, and that was all Maya. Joni Mitchell is also Sammy, interestingly enough. And that song, we'd been listening to that album when Maya and I were together one day just working, and she was telling me what this song was about, and it just sort of, we were like, this is like the perfect song. It's about her giving up her child for adoption when she was, I think she was 18 or 19. And it's such a beautiful song, and we wanted to give Rosie something beautiful from her past, like something in her backstory that was meaningful and beautiful, and her relationship with her grandma felt like a good part of her life. So she'd never licensed that song before, so Maya wrote a letter to her sort of saying, you know, I'm from Alberta, I'm also Sami, you know, I listened to you as a child, my mom loved you, and kind of just explaining why we wanted to use it. And we like to think that she read the letter. I don't know if she did, but she let us use it. And then the Fawnwood song, I think, is a fairly well-known lullaby, I would say. But yeah, it's just so gorgeous, and you spend a lot of time with that song. Yeah.
You want to say anything about that song that you spent a lot of time with, or?
Oh yeah, like I don't know, is it still English?
What?
Oh yeah, just, oh yes, I haven't seen the film in a while. There's like that one scene where like Rosie's in the washroom at the soup house, and she's like humming the like Fawnwood song. That song, like, it kind of got to me because like growing up, I took care of my brothers. I have 3 brothers, but at that time I only had 2 brothers because the other one wasn't born yet. But I got like really emotional every time like that song would play. I tried not to show it because at that time I really didn't like showing my like emotions, like raw emotions. But they were helping me like slowly bring them out. But I ended up crying, I think, on one of the takes, and I think somehow we messed it up. So it didn't get put in the film, that one. I can't remember how, I think that was our bad day that we had. Yeah.
I was really happy to hear it again in a film that I was involved in, Blood Quantum, that plays during the final credits as well. So if you want a very different change of pace film, may I recommend Blood Quantum, an amazing zombie film, which features in prominently, and that song features in the end credits as well too. That's just kind of the movie. Very different from this one, but also really think that's important for the movie. The next question, we have Mike here.
There were 2 things earlier, and they're not so much questions as observations that I thought were pretty interesting. One was earlier on, Aaron said something about being filmed in Vancouver, and you as director said, and exactly what I thought, because I grew up in Vancouver, and you said not too many are set in Vancouver. I grew up where it became Hollywood North. They were filming movies all the time, and none of those ever said that they were Vancouver. I was at a bus stop, and there was lightning all around, and there wasn't any thunder. And then later on, I saw an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, which is that one. But that seemed like a cute little joke in my head, and it was kind of profound, though, as I thought, is that from the ground up, there's an authenticity that seems to pervade the entire film, which is, but there's a paradox here and an irony, but the authenticity of we're shooting it in Vancouver, and it is Vancouver, and it seems like a small point, but it doesn't seem like it really is. Same thing goes on with the characters, and at the same time, there's an irony and a paradox, which I noticed comes up in a couple of comments that were here. You're in a room full of film people, and they analyze films literally frame by frame. So you get comments and questions relating to one particular thing, which is a real deep thing, which is filming it to look like it's one continuous tape. And that I thought was also related to this, but in a different way, which is that, and this is both a compliment and an observation, not so much a question, which is, you have these guys noticing the incredible technical demand to do that, but, and not to put words in your mouth, the outcome of it is to make it look like on the screen that there was no technique. And it reminded me of comments about what makes really fine art is that it looks artless. It looks like it wasn't artificial in that sense. And so we would know the amount of work that goes into
no work went into it. And I just wanted to say that there's a lot of people here in this room who appreciate that, not because it stands out to anybody that it was a continuous mistake or make it look like things, but the amount of work that goes into it to make it look like no work went into it. So that was really kind of profound.
Thank you.
As we're passing the mic, I'll just say I've seen the film many times now. Please forgive me. I did a thing this time when you watch a movie where you know that stitched together long takes, and like I played the "Where's the cut?" and I couldn't find any of them. I was like, so that's again just and that in and of itself, masking the cuts is like I've never seen anything like done so astutely. So like bravo for that as well too.
Yeah, Norm is very talented.
Next question, please.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that film. It's very inspiring. I have two questions. First one is a bit technical, so I'm very sorry. Can't help it. And this is related to the film cinematography, in particular its lighting strategy, because I'm very impressed. I mean, shooting on film with available light, that's already, right? Darren, shooting on film with available light in a continuous take, that's doubly Darren. Shooting on film with available light, mobile, that's triply Darren. So that's like a technical accomplishment all around. I was wondering, how did you as a cinematographer approach this strategically so that, the films, I've noticed that as the film progresses, the films get really contrasty, the shots get darker, but still legible so that, details are still in there. So that's the first question. Second one for Violet. One of my favorite moments in the film, actually my most favorite moment in the film, is when Rose is making up stories about Isla's going into the rehab and in the taxi ride. I thought, whoa, I see a different Rosie now. So different from the previous one. So that's very impressive. I was wondering, you brought so much to the film, but what has the film brought to you also, personally and professionally, and what's next?
I will start by saying that there was lighting. It wasn't all natural light. It was lit. He's just very good at hiding it. He's very minimalistic in the way that he lights, but very careful and very calculated. So it was just very careful lighting, and then the gaffer was also leapfrogging. So he, if the light was changing, he would be ahead there to adjust the lights. The camera team would be adjusting the aperture if they needed to. So just a lot of planning. The actors had to hit their marks every time for things to work. And then we were just the light was fading, and so there was one day where we lost light, and that was the day where we had to stop and start again. But yeah, it was always a risk that at the end of the day it would be too dark and we wouldn't see anything. But we kind of made it work for, I'd say 3 or 4 out of the 5 days of shooting.
I'm so sorry. What was your question? Because I have a brain of like Dory sometimes. I forgot.
He's asking, what did the film bring to you, and what's next for you?
I feel like the film brought to me, like, I used to be really, really shy, if I'm being honest. I used to be so shy that, like the first Q&A that we did, I didn't know how to answer anything. The guy asked me a question, and I was, like, looking at Kathleen and Maya, and I was, like, looking at, like, it was in Berlin, I was looking at the crowd, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, it's so huge, it's full. So I feel like it brought me out of my shell more. It helped me realize that I am more confident than I thought I was. Like I tell my friend Risha that I have social anxiety, but that scene, I end up doing that actually in real life sometimes. I tell people these made up stories, and then I'm like, I'm just kidding. Like today, I told Kathleen, I was like, where are you? And she's like, I'm downstairs. And I was like, yeah, I'm down here too. I was in the elevator, and she was like, where? I don't see you. Like, are you at a different hotel? Like, she's on the phone with me, and I was like, what hotel are you at? She's like, oh, I'm at this one? I was like, oh, I'm at Best Western? Like, what do you mean? And she's like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I'm just kidding, I'm in the elevator. But like, I actually do that in real life. I do that at, like, I'm a support worker right now with Atira in Vancouver. And I do that with the women there too. For what's next for me right now, I am taking like a break from acting because I'm going back to school to become a paramedic. Because that's what I really, really want to do in life, is become a paramedic. And then in a few years go into firefighting. I ended up taking like a Indigenous Youth Career Camp where at JIBC, where they like let you do things each day of like what police officers do, correction officers do, like paramedics and firefighters, and like it really like sparked an interest for me. And I think I'm gonna take like a little break from acting until I'm done school and then hop back into it after. Yeah.
Do you want to say like 5 seconds about Night Raiders?
Oh, Night Raiders.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
I know.
I think like a year after The Body Remembers, I had an audition for Night Raiders, and it's with Maya as well. I got to be in that one with her, and that one's more like futuristic dystopian kind of film. To be honest, I haven't seen that one in a while either. That's why I forgot about it. I had a lot of fun on that set. I got to shoot a gun. I never did that before, and I was like, the day that we were shooting that, I asked them, I was like, am I supposed to get training before using I know it's not loaded, but am I supposed to get training or something? And Dana, the director, was like, did you not get training? And I was like, no. And she's like, oh my gosh, okay, we're gonna take a break. And like, she got some guy to come show me how to use it. He's like, don't point at anyone. I was like, no, duh. Obviously you don't point at someone. And then they had me pointed at someone. Like right after that, they're like, you gotta aim it at this person. I was like, okay.
All you science fiction fans, please do check out Night Riders. It's just awesome, that movie, yeah, for sure. We have another question.
Hello.
Great.
I also just wanted to say thank you for a really remarkable film. And a couple of years ago, I had the pleasure of teaching the film in a class on cinema and time. This is at the University of Sydney on Gadigal land in the colonial nation state known as Australia. And it reached students probably in a very different way, you know, to what you might have imagined. It's going over the world and reaching people, you know, that you can't see. It must be one of the pleasurable things about making these works of art. But we talked a lot about the sound design, actually, of the film, which you were talking about visualizing the city. But obviously there's a lot of space in this film where, you know, there's not a lot of dialogue and you're hearing the city a lot, and there's some really interesting choices obviously made. The atmos is loud, things jump out at you, dogs barking, but also men yelling, and, you know, some of the most affecting moments, especially when Rosie returns, for instance, and you hear a muffled man yelling, you know, somewhere in the distance. These parts of the film, I feel like, are some of the most emotional. And I wondered, you know, you spoke a bit to how you visualize the city differently through filming, but were you hearing it differently too, and what was that like?
Yeah, I love working with sound in film. It's such a underappreciated tool, I think. I think, did it change the way, I mean, it makes you pay more attention when you start thinking about creating a soundscape, and how to reflect the internal lives of the characters through the sound. And there were some moments of sort of accidental magic, I guess, like when we were returning to the Raycam housing, in the final shot of the film where she gets out of the cab and she's starting walking away, and there were some kids and some kids in that housing unit that were just like screaming at each other and swearing, and it's just kind of, it's distant, but there's something about it that's just really rich and complicated, and very true to the space. So I think, yeah, it makes you appreciate sound more, and you're walking through these neighborhoods and thinking, how do I feel when I'm hearing that? And there's some really beautiful, construction sites are really beautiful places for sound. Like you hear, when we were filming, there was this construction site nearby, and I don't know what they were doing, but they had this, it was like this metal instrument of some kind, and it was making, we didn't actually get to record that, but I asked the sound guy to go get that. Because it plays so much into your psyche, and you're not even aware of it. So yeah, it's a great tool.
I think we have time for maybe one last question before the next screening starts. Derek, over. Okay, it's not going to help this way. He works hard for the money. Thanks, Derek.
I don't think a single woman has asked a question, and I think that needs to be fixed. I think we heard a congratulations, yes. So I'm curious about the representation of the female body and female reproductive aspects of the body. And it seems an odd choice to have started out in the gynecologist's office. And I just cringed. You know, it's an experience we've all had, and it's just never fun, you know? And it's so clinical and so detached. And then there's the way that Isla is hiding. She's hiding everything as she's undressing. And it's all so matter of fact. And then we get Rosie at the one point where she uncovers her belly and just caresses it. And there's this kind of love of her body. And so I wondered, could you say more about what you were trying to show and do about the quote unquote, the female experience? Because it came across really strongly, and it's kind of, I think I'm just kind of shivering from it because a lot of it was so upsetting to me, and I don't even know what to say about it. And I think the movie is really, really upsetting. And I don't, it's not that I didn't like your movie, but I just kind of don't love it. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for that question. Yeah, I think a lot of this film, what we were trying to speak about was motherhood, and you know, who has the right to be a mother, who has the choice to be a mother, and sovereignty over the body, and how Indigenous women's bodies have been used and abused for generations. And so starting with the gynecologist, where Isla, who has, you know, a very different experience than Rosie, she has a lot more privilege. She is able to afford to get an IUD. She's able to make a choice for herself in this time, and she has control over her body in that way. Whereas, you know, Rosie, you know, probably didn't have access to that, and found herself in a situation, but she wants to be a mother, and she wants to have this baby, and she has every right to have this baby. So just thinking about the female body and the Indigenous female body, and do you want to speak more about what that meant for you?
The way that I seen it was like, because like, oh yeah, like we all know men don't know what our bodies go through. So like having that visual there would be more of like an eye-opener for some men that to kind of understand what us as women have to go through. And that how some women are more privileged than others. Like Rosie didn't have a mother to like talk her through what she's going through. I work with a lot of women who actually go through stuff like that. And I recently like had a woman talk to me about how a guy used her, and like I was like just coming off my period, so I was like very emotional when she was telling me, because I can understand what she's going through of being used for my body. And so when she told me about that, I tried so hard not to break down and be able to support her, because as like support workers, we kind of have to detach our feelings at times and kind of just be like a zombie in a way. So like having those visuals there for other people, and even women who I said don't have that privilege to understand that they're not alone and that they have like there is other people that go through that. Because like that woman said to me, she's like it's all my fault. Like it's my fault that he used me. And I was like, bro, it's not your fault. Like you didn't cause this. He's the one that used you. It's like it's gonna take a while to get through this this piece in your life, but you have to make sure that he doesn't take over that power over your body. So like having those visuals, it really helps like other women that don't have that privilege to see that they can get through that.
Thank you so much, Violet. I think it's a really powerful way to, I think, end the evening and a suitable place to end. I have a few people to thank before we bring this to a close. I should thank the institutions that made this possible. I do want to thank the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada that provided some funding for this occasion, the University of Alberta and the University of Lethbridge that also helped to contribute to the event this evening. Again, I want to thank the wonderful Metro for hosting the screening, and best of all, I want to thank our two extraordinary artists for showing and sharing with everyone here this evening. I think one of the best films made here in recent memory. So thank you so much, honestly, for coming and sharing this.